actor and rapper Will Smith is being sued by a former member of his tour group with a string of damning allegations filed in court.
The violinist Brian King Joseph has filed a lawsuit against Will Smith and his company Trayball Studio Management.
Will Smith might never appear on screen again. Once the Fresh Prince, an Oscar winner, and a box office king, one moment changed everything, leaving his career at the mercy of the court of public opinion. The question on everyone's lips: can a comeback happen, or is this truly the end of an era? Join us as we unpack the controversy and its lasting impact on Hollywood. The slap heard around the world. Let's rewind to March 27th, 2022, the 94th Academy Awards. It was a night that should have been Will Smith's crowning achievement. He had been nominated for Best Actor for his charming and transformative performance as Richard Williams in King Richard.
Oh, we got Richard Williams is with Lizzie somewhere in the ground.
A role that showed his dramatic range and cemented his status as one of the greatest actors of his generation. But instead of being remembered for his acceptance speech and his tears of joy, that night became infamous for something else entirely. Chris Rock stepped onto the stage to present the award for Best Documentary Feature. He made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, Will's wife, referencing her shaved head and comparing her to G.I. Jane 2.
Jada Pinkett Smith has been making some waves with some of the revelations in her new memoir, Worthy.
What happened next shocked the world. Will Smith walked onto the stage in a furious state, slapped Chris Rock across the face, returned to his seat, and shouted profanities that were partially censored during the live broadcast. The audience sat in stunned silence. Was it staged? Was it real? Within seconds, it became clear. This was very, very real. That single moment, which lasted just barely 10 seconds, sparked a global conversation about violence, masculinity, comedy, boundaries, and consequences. Social media exploded, and think pieces flooded every major publication. Interestingly, everyone had an opinion. While some defended Will, arguing that he was only protecting his wife's honor and that Chris Rock had crossed a line by mocking Jada's medical condition. She has alopecia, an autoimmune disorder that causes hair loss. Others condemned Will, stating that physical violence is never the answer and that he had assaulted someone on live television in front of millions of viewers. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Will Smith won the Best Actor award less than an hour later, and his acceptance speech became one of the most awkward moments in Oscar history.
And the Oscar goes to...
Will Smith!
He tried to justify his actions by saying that love makes people do crazy things, and also compared himself to Richard Williams, protecting his family. He apologized to the Academy and his fellow nominees, but notably did not apologize to Chris Rock during that speech. The damage, however, was already done. The slap had overshadowed everything else about that night, and Hollywood never looked at Will Smith the same way again. But here's where things get even more complicated, because this wasn't just about one slap. This was about the unraveling of a carefully constructed image that had taken decades to build. And as we're about to see, the consequences would be swift, severe, and possibly permanent. But before we uncover those consequences, we need to understand who Will Smith was before that fateful night, because his fall becomes so much more tragic when you realize just how high he had climbed. The rise of a legend. Will Smith's journey began in West Philadelphia, where he was born and raised. He started as a rapper in the duo DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, winning the first-ever Grammy Award for Best Rap Performance in 1989.
And the Grammy Award goes to Getting Jiggy With It, Will Smith! Yeah!
But music was just the beginning. In 1990, he landed the lead role in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, a sitcom that ran for 6 seasons and introduced Will Smith to millions of households around the world. He played a fictionalized version of himself with such charm and enthusiasm that he became America's sweetheart practically overnight. But Will had bigger ambitions. He wanted to be a movie star, and not just any movie star. He wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world. In the mid-1990s, he made a decision to pursue blockbuster films, and it paid off spectacularly. Bad Boys in 1995 showed he could handle action. Independence Day in 1996 made him a global superstar, grossing over $800 million worldwide. Men in Black in 1997 cemented his status as a box office king. Throughout the late 90s and 2000s, Will Smith was virtually unstoppable. What made Will special wasn't just his talent, it was his universal appeal. He could do comedy, action, drama, and science fiction. He could make you laugh in Hitch and make you cry in The Pursuit of Happiness. He transcended racial boundaries at a time when Hollywood was even less diverse than it is today. He was strategic about his choices, reportedly using a formula to select projects that would have the widest possible appeal. And it worked. For years, a Will Smith movie was practically guaranteed to be a hit. His personal brand was equally impressive. Will Smith was seen as a family man, devoted to his wife Jada and their children Jaden and Willow. He was motivational, often sharing inspirational quotes and wisdom on social media. He was positive, energetic, and seemingly authentic. Brands loved him, studios loved him, the audience loved him. He represented the American dream, a kid from Philadelphia who worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and reached the absolute pinnacle of success. By the 2010s, Will had earned critical acclaim alongside his commercial success. Ali earned him his first Oscar nomination. The Pursuit of Happiness brought his second. And finally, King Richard seemed poised to get him that elusive golden statue. Everything was lining up perfectly. He was in the prime position to secure his legacy as not just a movie star, but as a respected actor who had done it all. And then came the slap. In one moment, decades of carefully built goodwill began to crumble. But the Academy Awards incident was just the beginning of Will Smith's problems. The question everyone started asking was, what happens next? Would Hollywood forgive him? Would audiences? The answer came faster than anyone expected, and it was far harsher than Will Smith could have imagined. The fallout and the sentencing. In the days following the Oscars incident, Will Smith issued a public apology on Instagram. He acknowledged that he was out of line and that his actions were inexcusable. He specifically apologized to Chris Rock, saying, "I was wrong. There is no place for violence in a world of love and kindness." It seemed like a genuine apology, but for many, it felt too little, too late. The damage had been done on the biggest stage in entertainment, and a social media apology wasn't going to fix it. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences launched a formal review of the incident. On April 8, 2022, just 12 days after the slap, they delivered their verdict. Will Smith was banned from attending the Academy Awards and all Academy events for 10 years. It was an unprecedented punishment. While other members had been expelled entirely for serious offenses like sexual assault, a 10-year ban was a clear message that the Academy took the incident seriously and wanted to distance themselves from the controversy. But the Academy's ban was just the official sentence. The real judgment came from Hollywood itself, and it was far more damaging. Projects began to quietly disappear. Netflix announced that Fast and Loose, an action thriller that was supposed to star Will Smith, had been put on hold. Sony pulled Bad Boys 4 from their production schedule. Apple TV Plus, which had released Emancipation, a film Will had already completed before the Oscars, gave it a limited theatrical release with minimal promotion. It was clear they wanted to fulfill their contractual obligations, but weren't going to put their full weight behind promoting Will Smith. The industry had spoken, and the message was clear. Will Smith was toxic. Studios that had once fought over him now saw him as a liability. The financial risk was too great. Would audiences still show up for a Will Smith movie? Would the media coverage focus on the film or on the controversy? Would working with him generate negative publicity? These were questions that studio executives weren't willing to gamble on. Social media remained divided, but the tide had largely turned against Will. The initial sympathy some people felt for him protecting his wife had evaporated as the magnitude of his actions sank in. He had committed assault on live television, faced no legal consequences since Chris Rock declined to press charges, and seemed to think an Instagram apology would make everything okay. Think pieces analyzing toxic masculinity, celebrity privilege, and the normalization of violence dominated the conversation for weeks. What made the situation even more complicated was the emergence of additional context about Will and Jada's relationship. In the years leading up to the slap, Jada had been very open about their marriage struggles on her show Red Table Talk, including revealing her entanglement with singer August Alsina. The public had watched Will appear uncomfortable and even hurt during these conversations, and some speculated that the slap was about more than just defending his wife from a joke. It was about a man trying to prove his worth in a relationship that had been publicly dissected and criticized. The sentencing from Hollywood wasn't just about the 10-year Academy ban. It was about something far more comprehensive: career death. Will Smith wasn't in prison, but he was effectively exiled from the industry he had dominated for decades. No major studio would touch him. Streaming services avoided him. Even his social media presence, once a masterclass in personal branding, became a graveyard where comment sections filled with slap references and mockery. For a man whose entire identity was built on being loved, admired, and successful, this was a fate worse than any legal punishment. Will Smith had been sentenced by the very industry he helped build, and the sentence was clear: you are no longer welcome here. But exile from Hollywood wasn't the only consequence Will Smith is presently facing: the personal cost of redemption. In the months following the incident, Will Smith largely disappeared from public view. His social media, once a constant stream of motivational content and behind-the-scenes glimpses into his glamorous life, went silent. When he did post, the comments were brutal and unrelenting. Every post became a referendum on the slap. Every attempt to move forward was met with mockery and reminders of what he had done. The man who had been one of the most beloved celebrities in the world was now a punchline. The impact on his family was equally significant. Jada Pinkett Smith, who had been at the center of the incident, faced her own barrage of criticism. Some blamed her for Will's actions, arguing that her public discussions about their marriage had put him in an impossible position. Others defended her, noting that she hadn't asked Will to slap Chris Rock and shouldn't be held responsible for his choices. Their children, Jaden and Willow, both successful in their own right, suddenly had to navigate being the children of one of the most controversial figures in entertainment. Friendships in Hollywood are often transactional, based on mutual benefit and shared success. When Will Smith became radioactive, many of those friendships quietly dissolved. Collaborators who had worked with him for years suddenly had scheduling conflicts or prior commitments when asked about future projects. Invitations to exclusive events stopped coming. The social infrastructure that had supported his career for decades simply vanished. In Hollywood, loyalty often extends only as far as your last box office opening, and Will's last major event had been a public relations disaster. But perhaps the most tragic aspect of Will Smith's fall is the loss of his legacy. Before the slap, he was on track to be remembered as one of the greatest entertainers of his generation. A rapper, sitcom star, movie star, and Oscar winner who had achieved success across multiple decades and mediums. He had broken down barriers, inspired millions, and proved that hard work and positivity could lead to extraordinary success.
Opening up, and it's one of the places in the region that is, we call it film friendly.
That narrative was supposed to be his legacy. Now, when people think of Will Smith, they think of the slap first. His entire career, all those achievements, all those memorable performances have been overshadowed by one moment of violence. It's reductive and perhaps unfair, but it's the reality of living in a digital age where moments become defining and context becomes compressed. Muhammad Ali will always be remembered primarily as a boxer and activist, despite his flaws. Michael Jackson will always be remembered for his music, despite the controversies. But Will Smith's defining moment is now inextricably linked to his worst mistake. The question of redemption looms large. Can someone come back from something like this? History provides mixed answers. Mel Gibson became a pariah after his anti-Semitic rant and domestic violence allegations, and while he's worked sporadically, he never regained his former status. Robert Downey Jr. overcame addiction and legal troubles to become Iron Man, and one of the highest-paid actors in the world. The difference often comes down to the nature of the offense, the sincerity of the apology, and the willingness of the public to forgive. For Will Smith, the path to redemption, if it exists at all, will be long and uncertain. It will require more than apologies. It will require genuine accountability, demonstrable change, and the slow rebuilding of trust. It will require him to accept that he may never reach the heights he once occupied, and that the Hollywood he returns to, if he returns at all, will treat him very differently than the Hollywood that once crowned him as its king. One downside of this controversy is that it has prompted people to dig deeper, bringing long-buried scandals and past controversies back into the spotlight. But does resurfacing the past do more harm than good? Dirts from the past. People are beginning to dig up scandals of the past, and Will Smith is once again making headlines amid the ongoing controversy. This time, it followed his performance with Spanish singer India Martinez at the Premio Lo Nuestro Awards in Miami on February 20th. During their duet of First Love, the Men in Black star was filmed getting unusually close to Martinez, sparking immediate backlash online. Social media users criticized the performance as inappropriate, with some accusing Will of crossing the line. The performance itself was highly charged. Will and Martinez embraced several times, and at one point appeared to share a kiss while Smith placed his hand on her backside. Backstage photos further fueled speculation, showing Martinez jumping into Smith's arms and wrapping her legs around his waist. Fans were quick to react, with comments ranging from shocked to dismissive. "This is the worst," one person wrote, while another labeled the moment inappropriate, even if it is entertainment. Others compared the incident to a poorly executed karaoke performance. Despite the criticism, some fans defended Smith's actions. Supporters referenced his complicated history with wife Jada Pinkett Smith, suggesting that the actor was entitled to express himself freely. Comments on social media included statements like, "Jada better let Will Smith have his fun," and, "As much as Jada has done, she better hush her mouth and let Will have this." These remarks referenced prior public attention on Jada Pinkett Smith's past relationships and the couple's unconventional marriage. Will's performance comes amid ongoing scrutiny of his relationship with Pinkett Smith. While the couple revealed in 2023 that they have been separated since 2016, they have not filed for divorce and continue to maintain a non-traditional relationship. According to sources, the pair are living their own lives but haven't completely severed ties, and even maintain separate homes near one another in Calabasas, California. Reports suggest that Pinkett Smith's proximity is part of an effort to redefine their relationship while preserving some degree of connection. Pinkett Smith has openly discussed the complexity of their marriage. In promoting her 2023 memoir Worthy, she admitted that by 2016 their marriage had left both parties exhausted. She described their separation as a divorce in practice, though not legally filed. Pinkett Smith stated that despite the separation, she intends to live with Will again in the future to care for him as he ages. The couple's dynamic has been shaped by high-profile incidents, most notably the 2022 Oscars, where Smith slapped comedian Chris Rock on stage. That incident drew global backlash and resulted in a 10-year ban from Academy events for Smith. In interviews following the Oscars, Pinkett Smith said the event prompted the couple to work through deep issues together. "We've been doing some really heavy-duty work together. We just got deep love for each other, and we are going to figure out what that looks like for us," she explained. Despite public efforts to move forward, Smith reportedly still harbors resentment toward Rock. Sources claim that he believes the Oscars incident derailed his career and damaged his reputation. According to In Touch Weekly, an insider noted, "Will's getting the last laugh and loving it," while adding that Smith will never forgive Chris for ruining his life, even though he's managed to pick up the pieces in the last year. In the wake of both professional controversies and personal scrutiny, Smith continues to navigate a complex public and private life. The backlash from his performance with Martinez highlights ongoing debates about celebrity boundaries, entertainment, and personal freedom. While critics condemned the performance as inappropriate, others viewed it through the lens of his unconventional marriage and personal choices. The personal cost is staggering, but there's another dimension to this story that hasn't been fully explored yet. What does this mean for broader conversations about accountability, cancel culture, and whether someone can ever truly be forgiven? The bigger picture: cancel culture and accountability. Will Smith's situation sits at the intersection of several major cultural conversations that have dominated the past decade: cancel culture, accountability, restorative justice, and the power of social media to make or break careers in an instant. His fall from grace is a case study in how modern society deals with public transgression. The term cancel culture has become so politically charged that it's almost lost its meaning, but at its core, it refers to the practice of withdrawing support from public figures who have done or said something objectionable. Critics argue that cancel culture has gone too far, that it doesn't allow for growth or redemption, and that it destroys lives over single mistakes. Supporters argue that it's simply accountability, that powerful people have gotten away with bad behavior for too long, and that there should be consequences for harmful actions. Will Smith's case presents an interesting test of these competing viewpoints. On one hand, what he did was wrong. He committed assault on live television in front of millions of people. He used his position of power and privilege to physically strike someone who had made a joke, albeit one that some found insensitive. He faced no legal consequences because Chris Rock chose not to press charges, which some argue means he got off easy. The Hollywood ban and career consequences, from this perspective, are exactly the kind of accountability that should happen. On the other hand, Will Smith apologized repeatedly, both publicly and privately, to Chris Rock. He resigned from the Academy before they even banned him, taking accountability for his actions. He hasn't tried to minimize what he did or play the victim. He has, by most accounts, done what we claim to want from people who make mistakes: acknowledge the wrong, apologize sincerely, and accept the consequences. So if that's not enough, what is? If Will Smith can't find redemption after doing everything we supposedly require, what does that say about our capacity for forgiveness? The racial dimension of this conversation cannot be ignored either. Some commentators have noted that Will Smith, a black man, has faced arguably harsher consequences than white celebrities who have done far worse. Mel Gibson made anti-Semitic comments and was accused of domestic violence, yet he continues to work in Hollywood. Woody Allen has faced credible allegations of sexual abuse and continues to make films. Roman Polanski fled the country after pleading guilty to statutory rape and has won Academy Awards since then. The list goes on. Is there a double standard at play? Do black celebrities face swifter and more severe punishment than their white counterparts? These are uncomfortable questions without easy answers. It's possible to believe both that Will Smith deserves consequences for his actions and that there's an inconsistency in how Hollywood applies those consequences depending on race, gender, and other factors. The two ideas aren't mutually exclusive. There's also the question of what people want accountability to actually achieve. Is it punishment for its own sake? Is it deterrence to prevent others from doing the same thing? Is it protection of the community from further harm? Or is it an opportunity for growth, education, and eventual reintegration? Different cultures and legal systems emphasize different aspects of these goals, and our current moment seems confused about which we're prioritizing. Will Smith's situation also highlights the power imbalance in cancel culture. When an ordinary person loses their job over a social media post, they might struggle to feed their family and could face genuine hardship. When a wealthy celebrity loses opportunities, they still have millions of dollars in the bank and live in luxury. Will Smith isn't going to be homeless or hungry. So is canceling even an effective form of accountability for the ultra-rich and ultra-famous? Or does it just shift the goalposts of what we expect from people at different levels of society? Perhaps most importantly, this situation forces us to confront our own relationship with celebrities. We build people up to impossible heights, invest in their personal brands, and treat them as symbols rather than human beings. Then, when they inevitably reveal their humanity through mistakes and poor judgment, we tear them down with equal fervor. The cycle is exhausting and possibly unsustainable. Maybe the real lesson here isn't about Will Smith at all. Maybe it's about the way we collectively engage with fame and the unrealistic expectations we place on people we've never met. These philosophical questions are important, but they don't answer the practical question that everyone wants to know. Is Will Smith's career truly over, or is there a scenario where he makes a comeback? Will's comeback plans. Will Smith is making a comeback on his own terms. He released his first full-length album in 2 decades, based on a true story, using the project to reflect on his infamous 2022 Oscars slap of comedian Chris Rock and the ensuing media frenzy. The incident was the first time Will wasn't seen as the good guy, and the backlash online portrayed him as a villain. The album represents his effort to be vulnerable and honest, revealing sides of himself that fans had rarely seen. Before recording, Will sought advice from some of hip-hop's biggest names, which influenced the album's direction and title. He wanted to share his true story and confront the fears and emotions he had long kept private. The album opens boldly with the track International Barbershop Day, which immediately acknowledges the backlash he faced, declaring that he had been cancelled. Other verses reference the Oscars incident, directly addressing how he reacted to protect his wife's name. Will has previously apologized for the incident, explaining that it was an emotional reaction to a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's alopecia, her hair loss condition. In the aftermath of the Oscars incident, Will made mental health a priority. He ensures that a therapist is always with him when traveling, highlighting his commitment to self-care and reflection. Following the controversy, he also spent time in India practicing yoga and meditation, which helped him confront his internal struggles and shed the performative, Fresh Prince persona that had defined his career for decades. Will's return to the spotlight began last summer with Bad Boys: Ride or Die, the 4th installment of the popular Sony franchise, which grossed over $400 million worldwide. The film's success gave him confidence to fully express himself in ways he had previously avoided, exploring more personal and vulnerable themes in his music and public appearances. Family continues to play an important role in Smith's life. His children and Jada Pinkett Smith are pursuing their own careers while maintaining close family connections. Despite their separation since 2016, they maintain a non-traditional but supportive relationship, including family dinners and occasional date nights. Each member of the family remains focused on their own projects while supporting one another. Over the past 3 years, Smith has spent more time alone than ever before, confronting what he calls the despicable prisoners within himself, the parts he had avoided showing the public, including fear, anger, sadness, and confusion. This period of self-reflection informed much of Based on a True Story, making it both personal and introspective. The album was first teased in 2023, including a high-profile performance of the gospel-heavy single You Can Make It at the BET Awards, where Smith performed surrounded by a ring of fire with the Sunday Service Choir. The tracks blend spirituality, personal struggle, and resilience, exploring themes of redemption and perseverance. One track reflects on the challenges of life, contrasting the darkness of struggle with the potential for growth and triumph. Ahead of the release, Smith returned to Philadelphia to promote the album, where the street outside his former high school, Overbrook, was renamed Will Smith Way. The renaming celebrated his enduring influence and marked a milestone in his personal and professional journey. Smith is also embarking on a redemption tour this summer, with dates across Morocco, Europe, and the United Kingdom. This tour marks the next phase of his career, combining music, personal storytelling, and reflection on his experience over the past few years. Through the album and his tour, Smith is reclaiming his narrative and presenting an unfiltered version of himself to the public. He is determined to show fans the real person behind the celebrity persona, addressing past mistakes, exploring vulnerability, and sharing lessons learned. For Smith, this era is about authenticity, resilience, and embracing both the highs and lows of life, proving that a career and a life can be rebuilt through honesty and courage. Will is also involved in giving back and engaging with communities, including a recent visit to a detention center in Philadelphia, where he met with troubled youth. The experience reminded him of the small but meaningful ways he can make a difference. Reaching even a single young person through conversation or mentorship felt like a victory, reinforcing the impact his presence can have beyond the spotlight. Hollywood insiders say that Smith is back and moving forward, with many fans and colleagues beginning to extend him grace after the intense scrutiny following the 2022 Oscars incident. The general consensus is that the public is willing to accept that he is human, capable of mistakes, and deserving of second chances. Observers note that if Smith had been truly malicious, additional negative stories would likely have emerged, making it harder for him to rehabilitate his reputation. Smith's return to music with his new album, based on a true story, marks the first major project in nearly 2 decades following 2005's Lost and Found. The record reflects a journey of introspection and self-expression, combining personal storytelling with a desire to reveal previously hidden facets of his life. Those who worked with him early in his career recall that his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, played a strong role in his creative decisions. During the recording of his 1999 hit Wild Wild West, for instance, Jada oversaw the studio sessions, ensuring the project met both their standards. Smith would not release material without her input, a practice that highlights the collaborative dynamic that has always underpinned his career. The release of Based on a True Story also brought Smith back to Philadelphia, where the street outside his former high school, Overbrook, was renamed Will Smith Way in his honor. The recognition served as a symbolic return to his roots, underscoring the balance between his past and present. During the promotion, he performed tracks from the album, combining reflective storytelling with energetic performances. One memorable moment came when Jada listened to the record for the first time, initially sitting expressionless, then eventually dancing along, a gesture that brought Smith a profound sense of relief and validation. Smith's personal life has undergone significant transformation over the past several years. Once viewed as part of one of Hollywood's most solid couples, he and Jada publicly acknowledged that they had decided to live separate lives in 2016, while still maintaining their marriage. This arrangement allowed both partners to pursue independent projects while remaining committed to their family. During that time, Jada had an entanglement with singer August Alsina, while their children Willow and Jaden were establishing themselves in music and acting. Despite the unconventional setup, Smith and Jada continued to maintain family rituals, from holiday gatherings to occasional date nights, demonstrating a modern, cooperative approach to marriage and parenting. Can Will Smith ever come back from this? Should he be given a second chance? Or are some lines simply too important to cross? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.